it's officially 101, so I'm going to start.
Gosh, you're so proper.
Our Allies in the Community panel. My name is St. Joan. I am with Weird Girls, and I have the great pleasure and honor of moderating this panel. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go and have our panelists introduce themselves and tell us a bit about why they're here and why they think this panel matters, and then we're going to get into things. So, Mia, would you like to begin?
I should have learned from yesterday not to sit right next to the moderator. Hi, my name is Mia. I'm a writer and a cosplayer, and I write about cosplay and other geek life stuff at exomia.com. I am bisexual. I'm here on this panel because I think I was an ally for a really long time before I realized I wasn't an ally. So I think being an ally is very important, and learning how to be the best ally you can be, to be supportive of people that are maybe going through some gender or sexual orientation crises is it's important.
Hey, you guys already know who I am. I've talked a bunch of you already. My name is Homer Alvarez. I'm a talent coordinator with HavenCon, also a writer. I wanted to be part of this panel because I feel like even though there are so many letters in our community, I'm only part of maybe one or two of them, and there's a lot that I don't know about the other letters, and just to learn and share.
I really have to start going first.
God. Great answers, right?
So last night, if you came to the panel later in the evening, everybody stole all the good answers. I'm Alexa Hart. I'm a transgender cosplayer. Obviously, it's hugely important for me. This panel is a big deal because there's not a lot of diversity. There's not a lot of understanding in conventions. So something like this is great so that I can learn more about, just like what Homer said, all of the other letters, because I don't know everything about all the other letters, but so that I can take that out whenever I do conventions and talk about it as well.
Hi, I'm Kelly Nova. Can you hear me? I'm trying to speak softly so I don't hurt your ear. I recently discovered bisexuality, and that's what I am. But I've been living my life thinking I'm straight, and everybody thinks the ladies are awesome. I think ally goes more than just for straight people. It's also understanding the other letters, like they were saying. It's not just, I'm an ally to LGBTQA. It's, I'm an ally to I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Alright. Let's just leave it there. I'm done. They got it.
I'm glad that we all speak Kelly Nova. It's important in language to be fluent in.
It really is.
We are allies to Kelly Nova.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
So I'm just curious, who all are our allies in here? Awesome! Thank you so much for being awesome, by the way. I want to start with something that actually came up yesterday in our bisexuality panel, which was one of our participants said she's just an ally. And I really kind of want to explore, you know, why sometimes we feel like allies are minimalized, and kind of discuss what they actually mean to you. Like, is there a moment that an ally made a real impact on your life? Who would like to share?
Can we just go in order?
We can go in order, or, you know, Alexa says, you know, she wants to have the first crack at something. So.
Yes!
Take all the good answers.
I have such a good answer for this one. So, you guys, if you didn't come to my panel yesterday, shame on you. No, there was a time, actually last year, when an ally kicked me in the butt and said, "Hey, I love you, but you don't realize that you're transgender." She knew before I did. She is my biggest supporter. She said, you know, I think you need to start doing some soul searching because everybody else that you know knows. You obviously don't. So she said, go see a therapist. A year later, I'm sitting here in front of you guys, and you know, it was because of one of those allies that I became comfortable in my skin. So it's a huge deal. You get to go next.
What was the question again? About like an experience with a particular ally?
Yeah, what was a moment that really, solidified in your mind the importance of allies?
Well, for me personally, I have found that it was much easier for me to gain female heterosexual allies than male heterosexual allies. And I think for me personally, I love all of my allies, but I really, really love the straight male allies who have they just don't give up. And they, it's like, we love you, and it's like, it's not a big deal, and it's one of those where just growing up, I just thought like that every straight guy was just automatically going to want to either kick my ass or just think that what I was doing was wrong. And over the past several years, I now, just have like about a dozen straight male friends who we're close, we talk about everything, and they don't freak out about anything, and I'm so grateful for that personally, that I love knowing that those guys have my back.
I don't really have a story, but I find an issue with her saying, I'm just an ally, because if you put, I'm just in front of something that you feel defines you, you're diminishing that aspect of yourself. So, I'm just a woman. What does that say to you? I'm less than a man. And that's bullshit. So, don't think of yourself as, oh, I'm just an ally, don't matter, whatever. No, like, you impact people's lives. And allies are what will help us get the proper protections and equality that we need and deserve for everybody. So never diminish yourself like that by saying I'm just something.
I think one reason that happens is even within the community, we get people that are like, I feel like we get segmented into our own groups. So bisexuals feel like we're the only ones that understand what we're going through, and lesbians feel like they're the only ones that understand what they're going through, and so on and so forth. To the point where it's hard within the community to be allies to other people because it almost feels like you close yourself off because you feel like they don't understand. So I feel like saying you're just an ally is like saying, oh, I'm just trying to do my best and listen and understand what you're going through and help out in the ways that I can. And that's never something that you want to diminish. That's the most important thing you can offer is the ability to be there for somebody and listen to what their experience is instead of assuming you know what they're going through before they tell you.
So would you guys say, or think it's fair to say that really we should all strive to be allies even within our own communities?
Yes.
Most definitely.
They were talking about how we don't know the experience of the other letters, and that's totally true for me. Like, I'm cisgender. I'm never going to understand the whole gender identity thing. It's never been a problem for me. It's never been something that I had to do any soul searching for. And the only way I can understand that is if people share their stories with me, and if I tell them that it's something I'm open to, I'm not going to judge you for it, and I want to know how you feel so I don't mess up, so I make you comfortable.
So what would you say an important first step for an ally is, or someone who, has always believed in equality but hasn't really known how to express it? What would you suggest for them? We can go one by one if you want.
Yeah, don't ask me this first.
Repeat the question. I feel like that was a lot of questions thrown into
It's
one.
Sunday afternoon, and we're.
I'm not speaking, but yeah, I may or may not be hungover, probably not, but
No.
3 questions in one is
So
much.
For someone who, wants to be a good, strong ally, what would you say a good first step for them is? It's really only one question.
Research. The biggest thing you can do so before you approach somebody, you already have all these assumptions about what they're going through. So the easiest thing you can do is listen in on people who are already like that, and the easiest way to do that is the internet, because you can find these communities that you're not a part of and learn more about people that aren't like you. So I would do that if you don't feel comfortable maybe asking, which sometimes it is uncomfortable, then you can always listen and research first before you dive in and accidentally say something that might be hurtful to somebody.
Yeah, I'm getting the whole need to go first thing. That was really good.
Thank you.
That was great. No, I definitely agree with that. And I think I would just probably say what I said on the panel yesterday is just don't just be open and be supportive, but also like don't try to figure it out for them as well. It's just like just take it all in, and if you have questions, ask the questions, and don't be afraid to ask the questions, honestly. But at the same time, just don't jump the gun. It's like, oh well, yeah, I know that. Oh, I know that now. It's like, no, but just listen.
But everyone has their own story, so if you are reading someone's story or you're hearing someone's point of view on how they identify themselves, it's not applicable for every single person in that group. So you can't just be like, oh, well, that's how they feel, whatever. I think it goes with having an open mind and understanding that everybody's different and they view it differently, but through understanding everyone's experiences and collecting those, like stories, you can understand all of Westeros instead of just, you know, the North.
That's the best metaphor I've ever heard.
I love when Kelly speaks Kelly. It's awesome.
Yeah. Always comes back to Game of Thrones. Everything.
You know, if you want to be somebody's ally, be their friend. Don't care about who they go to bed with. Don't care about what they're doing. Be that person's friend first, and then do a little bit of research. Ask the questions, just like what they said. But be their friend, because they're a human being. They're not a separate species. You can be friends with those people. You can be friends with me. I like friends. I like them.
This is the second panel I've had that has devolved into group hugs.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's awesome.
I think if you could define HavenCon in one gesture, it would be a giant group hug. Like, that's our secret handshake.
We have secret handshakes.
As well as not secret anymore, but...
Dang it,
It's still secret. We're still in the enclave. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bubble. Well, is there any... How about problematic behaviors? Does anyone feel comfortable talking about those? Okay. What are some tips to avoid being a problematic friend? Because I feel like there's accidents that happen, and then there's, you know, things that are not so accidental. So I think we all are in agreement that accidents are forgivable, but what would you recommend to avoid after you've done your research?
Well, one, don't be a dick. Just have empathy for how someone might react to something you're saying. But people that are saying hurtful things to be hurtful are shitty people anyway, and you're not an ally anyway. So I would go to mistakes. If you say something that you feel offended someone, apologize. And I mean, it's up to them whether they forgive you or realize it's an accident or whatever, but you need to recognize that you made a mistake, and I think internal reflection on that as well. Like, why would I say something like that? Here's why. That's wrong. Let's not do it again. It's like that internal thought process. I read this really awesome quote on Tumblr. Okay.
The source for all.
No, but like it changed my life. Okay. Because
was it R.M. Drake?
It was not. The first thought you have is what society conditions you to think. The second thought is what defines you. And I thought it was so amazing because I have these horrible thoughts. I'm like, what is your problem? And then I'm like, as long as I have that internal dialogue, I feel so much better about myself. Realizing, no, you're not okay to say that, you're not okay to think that, what is wrong with you, why would you think that? Because that's what society wants you to think. Oh, that's stupid of me.
I also think, in my opinion, people that have, like, in my experience, I mean, people who have tried to be allies and have been unsuccessful, the main reason that they have been is when they ask questions, they ask it in a way that encourages stereotypes. So like when I came out as bisexual, everyone's like, so did you break up with your boyfriend? And I'm like, you know, it would have been better if you had said like, oh, what does this mean? Or like ask me for an answer instead of kind of throwing accusatory things at me. Or like, does this mean you have a girlfriend too? Does this mean that you both have a girlfriend? Like, it would have been better if you had let me explain it instead of coming at me with like what you might think that's not accurate in my situation. So I think like sometimes just the way that you frame your question and making sure that if you are going off a stereotype, you can ask it in a nicer way than kind of being like, oh, I already know what this means kind of thing.
But part of the problem is that people don't realize this is an awful stereotype that you're using, and so it just comes out like word vomit anyway. So what do you do in that situation? Do you just say, hey, that was actually really stereotypical and it's hurtful?
And
so they reflect on that, or?
I was going to jump in, piggybacking off of those. I think one of the potential pitfalls is we need to recognize the intent behind the questions. There's a difference between, you know, a homophobic asshole asking two guys which one of you is the woman, and there's a difference between somebody who is genuinely trying to understand something they know nothing about, asking, so is one of you the man or one of you the woman? And, you know, it's what I find problematic is sometimes there's such a knee-jerk response, and I get it. But there's a difference between jumping down some homophobic idiot's throat and jumping down somebody who is genuinely trying to learn more. And I think that's part of it. And sometimes, yeah, there are going to be messy questions, but you have to recognize the intent behind it. If they are genuinely trying to understand you, then we need to kind of, okay, and tell them like, well, it's actually not that way, and make it a teaching moment for them instead of, you need to check your privilege, and blah, 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 and how dare you, that is so, I mean, you just gotta, you know, realize what they're trying to accomplish and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's pretty easy to tell when somebody does intend, like, not to be hurtful, but they are. Because I know when I came out, my mom said all kinds of stuff that was just misinformed, but it wasn't out of a place of malice. She was just genuinely confused. And so I said, well, you know, that's not really a nice way to refer to it, or no, in my experience, that's not true. Like, there might be other people that do that, but that's not why I'm bisexual, or whatever. Like, just being open to that conversation and that dialogue, but it is tricky because sometimes you don't know if it's well-intentioned and if it's supposed to be a teaching moment, and if it's not, and they're trying to be rude to you.
Well, and coming from a vulnerable place as well, they're asking this really personal question from you, and you feel vulnerable and they say something and they hurt your feelings. I totally get, like, being upset, and it's okay to be upset, but I feel like escalating it to a point where it becomes an argument and becomes hurtful for both of you, try to nurture that into something loving and, like you said, teaching them.
It's just more like just don't burn the bridge that somebody's trying to build. In essence, if somebody's trying to help build a bridge between the two of you, don't burn it down over like a simple misunderstanding.
So this kind of piggybacks on everything. Don't be that friend that overcompensates. Oh my gosh, I have a transgender friend now. I'm going to send my friend everything about RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm going to send my friend every single news article I can find. Don't be that friend.
That's kind of weird.
Oh, it's creepy.
Yeah.
but I don't know.
like you just become the token insert thing in your friend.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're not, like, because I know so many people, like, I love RuPaul's Drag Race. I know so many people that don't. Like, I'm not just going to send it to everyone that's, like, LGBTQ, blah, 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 blah,
right.
on my friends list. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Everyone that loves drag queens as much as I do, hell yeah, you're in that place, but, I mean.
It's just tough because I think it can be difficult to discern the individual from the label sometimes. I find a lot of freedom in labels. Like, I'm a vegan, I'm bisexual, I'm atheist. Like, those things to me help me figure out more of who I am, even though I start from the label and go from there. Like, I have my own individual opinions on each one of those, right? But for some people, the label is the identity, and it's not the same thing, but for some people, they don't get the difference.
So, one more question before we open up to Q&A, because I really want a bunch of Q&A here. What can we do as the community to reach out to more allies?
Do you mean like to include them, or?
Yeah, to sort of encourage more people to identify themselves as allies, because it's very common for, you know, people to be like, oh, I have no problem with, you know, people who are gay or people who are transgender, but they're hesitant to call themselves an ally. What can we do to encourage their support?
I think we need to be more inclusive in general. I know in high school I didn't identify as an ally even though I was okay with it, because it felt like all of the things, like the gay-straight alliance was mostly gay or bisexual people. It felt like there wasn't an environment that I could insert myself as a straight person, because I thought I was, to like be welcomed just as much. So I think it's just being inclusive and having, like, you can have specific things that are just for people that identify a certain way, but you should also open some stuff up to allies and make them realize that they're just as welcome.
No, yeah, totally, because when I identified as straight as well, I would go to like gay clubs and stuff, and like events, but I felt like maybe I was invading that space, and I felt like even though I genuinely wanted to be there, because I considered myself an ally, and I was like, I want to go and I want to support this, and support these people, I felt like I was invading a space I didn't belong in. I don't know how else to make it welcoming, because it is a welcoming community for straight people, so reinforce that, I guess. I don't know.
I thought of things.
No, go first.
I got excited, I'm sorry.
No, please get excited.
We talked about labels a whole lot through this whole first part of this panel. A lot of people don't like being labeled. That's a huge thing. You know, we need to start thinking kind of like what I said earlier. Everybody's a person. You know, we can all be friends. We can all be everything. Become friends. You know, I will tell you right now. I have a lot of gay friends that will not go to a straight bar because they don't want to be in that environment. I don't blame them either. But at the same time, I can tell you right now in St. Louis, you can walk into any bar in St. Louis, minus a couple of the really dirty, disgusting dives, and everybody's welcome. I have a couple of drag queen friends that frequent a lot of straight bars because they're fun.
I guess it depends what community you're in, though, because there are certain bars here in Texas, if you go in and you're openly gay, you will get your ass beat. If that's like the best thing that happens to you, you know? So I understand that fear of not wanting to go into straight spaces as well.
Well, and then I think that breeds this attitude of, you know, this gay bar or whatever is my space. So if people who aren't gay come in and they're invading. And yeah, it goes back to that, because I used to go to gay bars in college before I knew I was bi, and I was like, it feels like I shouldn't be here, but I'm having fun, and nobody knows my orientation unless I tell them.
Right.
So I don't know, it's a tricky subject.
But it's assumed, your orientation, sometimes when you're in a gay bar.
Well, I think people assumed I was straight.
Really?
Yeah, well, in Dallas, there's a huge problem with a lot of straight people, like, to the point where if I go to a gay bar, I'm more likely to get hit on by a guy than a girl there.
What's up with that?
It might just be the way I present myself, though. I don't know. Maybe I need to wear more flannel and be like, hello, like.
That is a stereotype.
No, that actually happens, actually in Montrose, gay mecca of Houston and Texas. Yeah, I'm from Houston. What up? You know, we going to, you know, South Beach or Blur. You know, as a female, those were gay guy bars. So for a female, it was definitely more of a safe space feeling, because most of the people there were not interested in me, and I didn't have to be as afraid as I was in, you know, straight bars. But there are those people who will be predatory in those situations and who will go to a gay bar and try to pick up women who are not interested in their advances. And they are not allies. But I would love to have more, you know, straight people go to gay bars and vice versa, and, you know, enjoy it, because generally the music's better.
Oh yeah.
Generally, like.
Let's be real. Dirty Six is gross. 4th Street is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, in general, we just need to be more welcoming regardless of what letter we're in. And that's one of the things that I'm realizing is that, you know, the way that I might feel going to a certain straight bar may be how an ally feels coming to the gay bar, because it's a little bit different in gay bars, because they're not just bars, they're sanctuaries for a lot of these people. And so for them, it's a safe space for them to be themselves without having to worry about it. And so when someone, it's almost like it could be a knee-jerk response to just like, who are you? Like, are you cool? You know, this is our safe space, you know? And it really comes down to everybody needs to be welcoming, but at the same time, the allies need to realize this isn't just a bar for us. It's a sanctuary. And, you know, and so it's like, well, you know, maybe don't bring the bachelorette party in here because we can't get married yet, and, you know, or you know, and maybe don't start bitching because the bartenders are ignoring you, you know, and it's just kind of like it's, you know, learn and but also be welcoming, and I think it goes both ways. Everybody on both sides has to be open and welcoming and realizing, you know, this is cool, this is not really cool, and just being open about that.
I feel like because of your answers, you should be a professional, like, mediator for people's problems. Because that sounds amazing. Just like everybody, just like, hey, cool it down and get
a soothing voice.
You know, this is going to be weird. I practice in the car sometimes, and you know, my partner got me hooked on NPR, and
I see it now.
And so I'm in the car and I'm just like, hello, welcome to fresh air. And then it goes into Molly Shannon, where I'm like, oh yes,
I really hope that I don't call an 800 number.
Oh hey girl, what's up?
I need to practice my radio voice. Hello. Hello. Welcome to Night Bell.
Now all I can think about is sweaty balls. Why would you do that to me?
It's Sunday.
No one's coming. All right. On that note,
It's zombie day.
Questions and answers. Now, if you ask a question, you might or might not get a piece of candy from it. So keep that in mind if you have aversions to candy like some vegans over here. Then, you know.
I'm not averted, like, I like candy.
I tried to give her candy yesterday and she said no.
I said I was sorry.
She just doesn't want to break vegan edge.
I have my superpowers.
I got that.
5 minutes later, everybody.
It's Sunday morning. All right, so
Afternoon.
It's 1:30.
I am done for one mimosa.
Orange
right.
juice, it's orange.
juice.
Question back there.
So the answers we all talking about making a teaching memo if somebody screws up asking you about your orientation or gender identity or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about, like, you know, it's tiring to always be a teacher, so you don't always want to have, you know, you sometimes want to just like tell somebody and move on instead of, you know, gearing up, like, okay, I'm going to tell you and then I'm going to explain it to you.
Postcards. I think we should all print out postcards. Just a
I'm
fact sheet.
bisexual. Here's what that means. Here's
Be
frequently
like
asked.
the Jehovah's Witnesses? Is that what you said? Have you heard about the LGBTQA community?
Not doors.
You gotta get the clickers. Got new allies.
That's a really tricky question though, because sometimes it does feel like, why am I obligated to tell you this personal thing about me? I don't really know, because I'm still excited about being bisexual because I just came out like a year ago, so I'm just like, let me tell you. So I will give it to somebody else, but I do think it sucks that we have kind of an obligation to be the, like poster child for whatever thing we are.
I would just say that it just comes back to intent. I mean, if I were to come out to my family and they all had these questions that I'm sick of answering. I mean, yeah, but to me, and this, I'm just speaking for me, to me, yes, it can get a little tiresome and annoying, but at the same time, it's like, what is your end goal? What do you want to happen here? Do you want to develop this relationship? Do you want them to understand you? And if you do, then I feel that sometimes it is necessary, and I get it. When I came out in college, it was in my dorm, and I got like the same little. It's like they all had the same sheet. So what do you do? And yeah, I got tired of it. And at that point, it didn't really matter because like these aren't really friends. But you know, if I have a lot of people who are close to me and who I want to continue to be close to them, I do it. I just I answer the questions, and for me, it's just, what do I want out of it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep this person in my life and have them know more about me? And yes, then I do it.
Andy? Yes, sir.
I was just actually more of a comment on that. And basically, when you become kind of like, when you speak at conferences and become a very visible person in the queer community, sometimes you're kind of bombarded by allies or people who want to become allies, and I think that kind of burns out a lot of people. So what I would tell allies is keep in mind 3 things: perception, intent, and timing. Why do you want to ask these questions? Like, are you genuinely interested in establishing a connection with a queer person, or is it just because you want to know? And sometimes you want to know, and that's fine. But you also have to know that we are not walking encyclopedias for you, okay? So we are also people. So your intent, again, why do you want to know this? Because I'll be happy to tell you anything you like, but do realize that we are not all the same. So while some people might be very happy to explain about like gender and like their relationships and their holy, and all of these things, other people might not. So realize we're all different, so again, address that as an individual. And the last thing is timing, because like this is like the perfect forum. Like if you want to know something, speak up, because this is the time you need to do it. But if it's like somebody and you're like at the line on McDonald's and be like, excuse me, I saw you on YouTube, and could you please tell me about the hierarchy of a healthy relationship right now? You'd be like, no. So it's like, keep in mind those 3 things. I think most queer people, because there are so many, I guess, harassment, I guess. We try not to do that, but sometimes where we're caught off guard, we might snap at you. We don't mean to snap at you. So it's just keep in mind those things, perception, intent, and timing. And most of the time, if we keep those, we'll probably keep those in check from our side, and we probably can come to an understanding.
So do you want to join our panel?
Right.
At the very least, he needs candy.
Yeah.
That definitely warranted some candy.
Do you like nerds?
Get a sticker.
Sure. Okay.
Doug, Mark.
Sticker.
Of course he does.
Ooh, you almost got it.
Hey, Sina.
What?
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Girl, you don't even know.
I can only figure something else out too. Who would you rather have telling people about you, or about what it's like to be gay, to be lesbian, to be bisexual? Would you rather them find it on the internet, or would you rather hear it from a person? As much as sometimes it becomes daunting when so many people ask, take a step back and think about that. Because when someone sees you and they want to be your friend or your ally, you need to remember that you're putting forth that foot for the community, and if you push them off and say, go look it up, they may find a lot of stuff that we don't want them to see, some stereotypes.
And not to mention that if you are their only exposure to that kind of, like if you're the only trans person I know, for example, and you're mean to me, I'm gonna just assume all trans people are mean, which makes no sense. But like, there was a drag queen recently who came under fire because she said some really transphobic stuff, and she was just talking about like how mean trans people are and all this stuff, and people were like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, you know what, I realized I just had a bunch of bad experiences. I didn't realize that it wasn't related to trans people being trans. So it's kind of tricky too, because you feel like you have to be that role model, or else leave people with a bad understanding of who you are and who the community is.
And do you find that particularly true for the trans community? Because most of the questions are very invasive questions. So, like, for us, it's a little more superficial in terms of, like, the questions are dumb things like, how much do you love glitter? Versus, you know, like, some really deep personal things.
We had some pretty awesome conversation at the bar last night that had I not had about many. It was a lot.
No, it was just like between one and like a lot.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
You
fair.
know, I probably would have duded up and done something I shouldn't have last night. But the questions are very personal. You know, well, are you going to keep it? What? Who gives a damn?
It's not
And
your
it's
business.
it's always those type of questions. It's always the sexual questions. It's not, why did you decide to do this? You know, it's not learning about the person or that particular label. It's very much about the sexual things, because the trans community has been very, it's been shedding a light here as of late, and I got to tell you, you know, people see one of two things. They either see Laverne Cox, or they go on the internet and they look up porn.
Well, I think it's also tricky because everything else in the LGBT umbrella is sexual orientation, and trans is gender, and a lot of people just don't know that there's a difference.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think you get sexualized questions because people don't realize it's not a sexual orientation. Because I don't know, I've had to explain trans people to like my family members before, and they're not mean about it, they're just ignorant, and they don't realize it's not related.
As trying to be a trans ally for a while, I've been, like, because it was nothing I had ever really thought of. It's, okay, what do you identify as? Like, fucking whatever, it's your business. But realizing that people aren't as embracing towards trans people, I really made it my mission to understand, because I'm cis. I will never understand what you're going through, but I can have the empathy and appreciate it. And it's, if you want to be an ally of a transgender person, it's not your fucking business what is happening with the anatomy. It's not your business. Why would you ask a woman, oh, you're going to keep your tits, right? Like, why would you ask a normal cis woman that question?
Or the more offensive version, which is, I've heard many times, which is just like, oh, but you have such great boobs, like, why would you get rid of them? Or something like that. Like, even worse, I don't know. And I think it's just more like a personal curiosity and not realizing that it's very invasive. And especially if you don't have a lot of trans people in your life, you don't know the answers to these questions, you don't know that it varies from person to person.
And I think it's natural as a cis person to have those questions, but you don't have to say them.
That's the tricky part.
There's an inside filter where your brain thinks of things, and then you have to actually will it to come out.
Oh, man.
Been very patient.
So, my question is kind of an extension of the first one, where, as an ally, you know, it is something where, you know, we do have a legitimate curiosity. We want to know what we can so that we can support, but then there is also that element of timing where, yeah, I'm sure that everybody gets tired of answering very personal questions about their sexuality and gender identity and everything. So, as an ally, how can we approach you about those topics in a way that lets you know that we're curious, but also lets you know that when you're ready, or if you want to, that we're not trying to force you to talk about it, but we want to let you know that we're here to talk about it if you want.
Just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just put
start out
your
with
intent
that.
completely and say, this is where I'm coming from. I'm honestly curious. Please, can we have this conversation? If not, that's okay. Lead me in the direction where I can go instead. Just be completely honest.
And
I mean, that's
just don't start with questions. Start with,
Right.
I'm really curious about this. I have no idea what it's like to be this. I have questions for my understanding so I can be a better ally. And I think 9 times out of 10, unless they're just really tired of answering those questions, they would be way more willing to have a conversation with you than normal.
But I think that if you put it in the framework of, I want to be an ally, I want to understand, you're putting forth the effort to build that bridge, as Homer was saying, and I don't understand why someone wouldn't have that conversation with you.
Well, they're just really tired.
Yeah, a conversation might happen.
Or it's like, hey, maybe later,
Yeah.
but like...
But putting that intent out there, that's the most important part.
Right,
And then you know where they're coming from.
Exactly, and I think a lot of the hurt feelings come from the misunderstanding where the intent is coming from.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely say leading off with, I love you as a person, and I just want to learn how to support you better. And so whenever you're ready to help me do that.
But even if you don't, if you're not that close to somebody, but they're in your life,
You
say,
still love
I
them as a
appreciate
human
you
being.
as, yeah.
I'm a Hufflepuff.
Say that.
I know you guys mentioned resources. What are some of the resources you like that you would give to our allies?
We give candy to our allies.
That is a resource.
I love, I think it's called Auto Straddle. It's like queer news and, yeah. I just always look at the articles. I read it for the articles. But that's a really good source. Like reading articles and like opinion pieces.
Yeah, but do you have any named ones? Any people you like to read that specifically?
Auto Straddle.
See, I mean, honestly, like, sometimes having very specific resources is important.
That's all I got. Don't look at me.
I just...
Hello.
NPR voice.
That's right. So I don't have any resources that I point people towards. A lot of times there's a straight trans group that somebody created in St. Louis. So if they're a Facebook friend, I put you on that group and I let them learn, because there's a lot of people in St. Louis that are more than willing to answer questions that either I can't or I don't have time to answer 8 million questions or what have you. There's a lot of those groups that are out there that are very welcoming, that you can always point people towards.
When I was really trying to find information on people transitioning, because that was something I understood.
Why didn't you just ask me?
Because I didn't know you. I didn't know you. So I understood gays and lesbians and bisexuals and queer and gender fluid. I wanted to understand more about transgender, and so I went to Tumblr because I love Tumblr, and there's some shit on Tumblr, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But also, people do leave their stories there, and they say, these are the pronouns I want you to use, don't use any other pronouns because it hurts, that's not who I identify as. And by going through those, and I went on Twitter and I found a lot of really awesome people that have already transitioned or in the middle of transition, and I don't want to use the phrase social justice warrior, is that what, right? But in a way, I mean, because they are putting out all kinds of really awesome articles from everywhere around the world, like about raising awareness on transgender people, about women of color who are also transgender are more likely to die by the age of 30, if not sooner. And it's absolutely horrifying, and I keep them there because I need that fresh in my mind. So I understand, because I'm not in that space, and I need to understand. So I went to Twitter as well. I don't remember if I searched like a tag or something, but social media is a great place to get everybody's stories and bring it all into one.
Trans Day of Visibility was like last week, and that was a great one because you could just look through the hashtag and you see people's stories, people's photos, and you can, like, that's an easy way to look in on something that you may not be experiencing but you want to know more about. So just, yeah, social media, great resource.
And we had a question over here.
Did you go okay? Okay.
It was more of a kind of an add-on, you know, when someone asks and wants to be an ally. For me, the first thing, you know, once we get past intent and the curiosity, they really genuinely want to know, I don't want pity. Nobody wants anybody's pity, but I would appreciate some empathy.
Yes.
People need to know the difference between sympathy and empathy. sympathy and pity do not help anyone. Okay, that doesn't give anybody a resource or a boost. But being willing to understand or try to understand what somebody's going through, that empathy is way bigger, is way more important to me. So just trying to help someone understand the difference between those two things is big.
I would try and throw candy over there, but I'm scared.
Another thing about the understanding transgender and place to go to, there's a Facebook called the, I think it's letters first, the Transgendered Education Network of Texas.
Awesome.
And there's a lot of transgender leaders, I know from Dallas, that lead that group. So there's a Facebook page for it, so you can go there and maybe get some information if you really want to know answers to that.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I should Facebook them now.
So, I think something that's kind of touched on but sort of glossed over, and I wanted to bring it up. You guys are all super enthusiastic about this. You're on a panel, so clearly you're super enthusiastic about it. Not everyone is. Not everybody wants that burden of having to represent the community and educate people, and that needs to be respected and not looked down upon. Like, some people just want to live their life. They just happen to like the person of the same gender, or they happen to be gender non-conforming, you know. And I feel like that has been sort of, I don't want to say, I feel like I'm hearing like, oh yeah, that's okay, but really you shouldn't be okay with just living, you know.
Well,
I
I think
that's appropriate.
I think a lot of people who, you know, we do have to kind of understand and respect that not everyone wants to talk about it all the time, but like was said earlier, you know, if your friend comes to you and says, I want to understand more, then it becomes a question about your friendship, of they're trying to understand you. And yeah, we don't want to always represent the community. I don't always want to be a poster child for pansexuality, but it's something that helps people understand me. And sometimes that requires explanation. I'm also Hispanic. Sometimes I have to explain Hispanic things to people because, you know, cascarones are not universal. I learned this yesterday.
Oh my God, I wish I had some of those today.
Oh, yeah, right?
I don't even, what is that?
So what?
Okay, so teaching moment.
Wait,
What did you say? I did not know that word. Say that?
Cascarones?
No, they're empty eggshells, and we fill them with confetti.
That's what they're called?
Oh, honey eggs.
Those are the best things ever!
I guess white people took that from you.
Do not Columbus my cascarones.
It's because we can't just say that word. That's why I had to ask you what it was like 5 times.
But at the same time, yes, I definitely think that, you know, not everyone always wants to talk about it, and not everyone, you know.
I think my point is don't judge those who
Yeah,
don't.
and no, we certainly shouldn't judge them.
Less proud. They're just expressing their pride.
Yes.
Just more quiet about it, you know.
Right, and I certainly, I hope nobody took the message that anything that I said is something that is in any way an imperative. That, like I said, I was just speaking for me, but I do agree, we're all different, and we're all different people. Just because we're part of a letter doesn't mean we're all the same, and that's already been touched on, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think Alexa summed it up pretty well, you know, be that person's friend.
Absolutely.
That's what you can do. You've had your hand up for a long time.
Thank you, May. I just wanted to basically ask how you guys react. Because I've been an ally for one letter at a time. I've been kind of growing as things throughout my life. That's what I'm working on.
How many badges do you have?
What are the gym battles like?
I'll create that pin when I get home.
Year 2.
Oh!
Yes!
That's an idea.
One thing I've come across is I have a transgender friend who I learned a few things through. And I've noticed that because as an ally, I'm trying to learn more and more and more. But I make mistakes of assuming that I know something, and I don't, just because I know one person. And the problem that I come across is I don't know when I don't know something. That's a problem in the ally community. So how would you suggest, because I think social media is something that we can do to learn things, but it's not personal, so I don't learn that way. Reading online is nothing compared to something I'm going to get with a personal interaction. So I can always call back to that one thing that I learned from that one person. But how do you guys handle allies that don't know everything? I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, I don't even know everything. Like, I don't expect them to. I don't expect anybody to. So I would just gently correct them and be like, I don't know, a lot of times people mix up being polyamorous with being bisexual, so I tell them, oh, it's actually two different things, and I have to explain that a lot. But
or
that's not something that offends me.
polyamory with open relationship.
Right.
Are confused a lot as well.
Yeah.
Or didn't we have to yesterday kind of, Danny and I explain what pansexuality was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then everyone's definition of that is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just don't think it's, I guess it's on us to not be mean to allies that are not right about everything, because I'm not.
I think it's definitely something where, you know, we have to approach any kind of question or misstep like that, or, you know, something that we don't know, as, you know, growth and experience, and we have to teach it all, or come at it all, you know, knowing that there's love and compassion and caring between the two parties. And it's okay. It's okay to not know, and it's definitely okay to not know what you don't know, because how can you know it? But, you know, I think it comes down to us as, you know, non-straight people to be kind and love our allies.
What kind of mistakes are you referring to? Like, when you're talking with your friend and something comes out and it's like, oh, okay, that was wrong, or like it was transphobic of me to say that, or...
Well, one example I had was the specific trans friend that I had was trans female to me. Okay. And when she was a female, she was a lesbian. When she transitioned to male, she became gay. So she actually transitioned sexualities as well. And I wasn't sure if that was normal. And I did some, obviously, investigation with that one person. But I know some of my friends in the same circles who were around with didn't understand that. And that's even more confusing. And it just caused a lot of toe-stepping that was unintentional. And I know it caused a lot of pain to that one specific person. And potentially any other transgender that this entire circle of friends.
Assumptions were made, maybe, or
right.
Okay. I would say in that case, just have. What do you think? Have an open conversation with that person. Say, I want to understand you. It goes back to loving your friend and wanting to understand and empathize and know them as a person and who they are. They're not your friend if you don't understand them. You know. I think that question's better handled by you, because
Look at you.
I mean, I feel like we didn't really necessarily answer how to help you. You know.
Well, can I just, sorry, before you answer, I did want to say, because I feel like you're asking for practical resources and we're giving
Right.
There are a lot of communities. I know that there is a women's center that deals with LGBT women. Now, whether or not there's a broader one, the Women's Community Center in Austin, so that's one I can actually give. But there are lots of like small safe space discussion groups nationwide that you can, as an ally, join and talk with. It will be, you know, the spectrum of LGBT people discussing specific issues. So those exist. I know the Women's Center in particular, but it is more of a for women. So I'm sure though that there are similar groups. I don't know if you're in Austin or no. Houston. Oh, Houston. Yeah, you have.
We got your back in Houston.
So I think if you learn through the personal connection, those sorts of groups are really helpful, because you can sit in a safe space and have very open dialogue about things, and it can be, you can learn from real world examples and
In Austin,
relationship.
actually, if anyone's curious, you can always hook up with Out Youth
Yeah.
because they are a fantastic resource in networking.
If you volunteer for us, we train you.
Yes.
Hey.
Same.
We love Out Youth, so they have amazing resources and can definitely get you in touch with people. In Houston, it sounds like you know of a few
Oh, yeah.
resources.
The mantras will figure it out.
Yeah. Just walk down the street and be like, I need help. I need help, and they'll help you.
In Dallas, the Resource Center is Dallas.
Resource.
Good place.
Yeah. There are local chapters everywhere who I think would really love to have more allies visit them. And yeah, those individual safe space groups and dialogue groups are a fantastic resource. So
There's
definitely
a lot of
invest in them.
religious ones too, like a lot of faith-based. A lot of churches are doing inclusive dialogues. So
Are they
those are another good
safe?
resources.
Yeah.
Church.
Yeah, especially, there's several denominations that will, are
Unitarian,
very
there's a lot
open.
of Anglican, Episcopalian, Presbyterian,
just, no speaking in tongues, okay? Other than that, we're good.
So to answer, I
Yeah,
think to
sorry.
kind of answer your question, the simple thing is don't assume anything. Just at some point, it's going to come across. Address it when it comes up. Don't if you're not comfortable digging in because you're not sure, wait. Because let's be honest, some people don't want to talk about that right then. I will tell you, when you transition, there is a crazy hormonal just explosion that happens, and
Like PMS on crack, I'm sure.
worse,
Yeah.
maybe. And honestly, your sexual orientation can change, and then it can change back, and then it can change back again. Trust me, speaking from experience.
So you never know what you're gonna get. How exciting.
It actually comes down to a bisexual fact. I read, you want to get that hashtag trend, bisexual facts. They're amazing. Go look them up. Bisexuals are
they
actually
into
just
satire?
heterosexual and gay, but we oscillate at a rate of 30,000 RPM. So.
Just like one final thought before we close this question, but I think a lot of it just has to do with thinking that one person's experience is every person under that letter's experience. Because I know I personally have had this with trans people because, I have a friend who is doing top surgery, and then I encountered somebody who decided that wasn't something for them, and I was like, well, then are you really trans? And then I realized, like, oh, it's different for everybody. Like, it's something that you can't go with one person's experience on. And that does make it harder to be an ally because you have to do a lot more digging in and investigating and questions and research and all this stuff. But just realizing at the beginning, like, oh, I can't take this person's experience to be everybody's experience. It's not universal. That'll help you more than anything else. So then when you ask questions, you're not asking them in a way that is like, oh, so when are you getting surgery? Or something that could be offensive if they're not planning on it, that kind of thing. You say, oh, okay, so what's your next step? And you let them answer.
So, on that note, if you have more questions, check out your local resources. And if you didn't get candy, come get candy.
We have stickers.
And we have stickers.
And business cards.
But I definitely want to thank every single one of you for coming out and for supporting HavenCon in general. Thanks a lot for this. You are fantastic. Thank you, panelists, for being amazing as well. And if I, for some reason, run out of Square Cat stickers and/or candy, you can always get more at the Weird Girls table in the ballroom. So,
Come take pictures with us in our frame.
we got lots of pictures.
We worked really hard on it.
Y'all are a great audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.